Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Highbury Standard. Today, we're going to do a very quick review of the Arsenal 25-26 season. If you saw my last video, you kind of already know how I felt about, walking away with the Premier League trophy, considering all the other competitions that we were involved in. But I think the best way to start today is by looking at the business that we did in the summer transfer window, in which Arsenal brought in around 8 players and spent 294 million euros. Of course, it was Zubamendi, Eze, Gyökeres, Madueke, Mosquera, Norgard, Kepa, and Nkapie. Now, regardless of what you think about some of those players, how you felt about them in that moment, how you feel about them now, one thing is very clear. We went into this season, and as a fan base, I think everybody was on the same page, and that page was we addressed every single position that we needed to address. Everywhere that you looked, we had at least 2 players per position. We had the squad depth. We addressed everything, regardless of how you felt about whether some players were good enough, whether you had some questions about the price tag or the profile. It was the very first time that we actually went into the Premier League season and we addressed every single area on the pitch from the first team to the second team. And with that, we were happy. And as the season progressed, we found ourselves in a very, very good position, top of the Premier League, a decent, points gap between us and whoever was in second at the time, with teams around us that weren't looking good, that were falling off, that had a lot of things going on behind the scenes or on the pitch, they just weren't playing very well. And according to the bookies, we were actually the favorites in the Premier League, the FA Cup, and we were even edging PSG and Bayern Munich when it came to the odds as winning the Champions League. So we were all kind of flying high, albeit ignoring what was a very boring and very methodical and passive, style of football that was heavily reliant on set pieces. But the kind of realization moment for us was that terrible, run of games in which everything was falling apart. And that was the EFL Cup final defeat to Man City, followed by a pathetic exit to Southampton in the FA Cup, followed by a home defeat against Bournemouth, which then, of course, was followed by a defeat to Man City in the league. And after those games, which all happened in a very short time, we were looking at another season of being trophyless. An EFL Cup final that failed to change the narrative that we were all hoping to change, which is a team that is finally capable of getting over the line. An FA Cup final exit that, once again, a trophy that we all hold very dear to us as Arsenal fans, that we should have given ourselves a proper fighting chance for, considering the quality that we had, and we failed to do so. And a Premier League that we just let slip through our hands against a Manchester City side that had no business being in it, all while playing a style of football that we all knew wasn't good enough and wasn't sustainable. And at that point, it looked like Mikel had no idea what he was doing. And our only hope at that time was looking like the Champions League only because of the easy route that we had it in it. And even then, we were scraping by 1-0 wins on aggregate to Sporting Lisbon across 180 minutes, holding on for dear life. That was what our season was looking like up to that point. And it took Mikel switching things up against Fulham in that, home game win where we won 3-0, that the fans finally got back on board. Because we felt like, okay, we finally saw something there that can kick us on, that hopefully can get us over the line in these last 2 remaining competitions. And that's exactly what happened, at least in the Premier League. City fell short at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. They then fell short again against Bournemouth. The Premier League was delivered, and we lost a Champions League final to a PSG. And our fan base as a whole is excited and happy, and having the time of their lives because we're Premier League champions after 22 years. And listen, I enjoyed that too. I enjoyed that moment too. That goal against West Ham was amazing for me. It's such an emotional moment. Seeing the players celebrate at the training ground was an emotional moment. Seeing that trophy lift was an emotional moment for me. I couldn't have been happier because I, along with every other fan and players and manager, had given so much to this club, especially emotionally. We've given so much to this club that to finally see it get over the line meant a lot to us. But I can't ignore that this was a season that should have delivered a lot more. And I do genuinely believe that we fell short. I do. And it's hard. It's very hard to look at the summer transfer window that we had and then look at the starting 11 that we fielded in the Champions League final and not feel like it was an opportunity missed. I'm going to walk you guys through a very harsh reality right now. And this might leave you stunned, but this is the reality. In the Champions League final, we started David Raya, Mosquera, Saliba, Gabriel, Nkapie, Rice, Odegaard, Skelly, Saka, Havertz, and Trossard. Only 2 of those players started that were signings this summer. That was Nkapie and Mosquera. Mosquera also only started for us because both Timber and White were injured. Otherwise, it would have only been Nkapie. Do you want to know the combined transfer fee of players that we signed this window that started the Champions League final for us? The biggest game of this club's history in the last 20 years? We spent 294 million euros, by the way. Do you want to take a second to think what was the combined fee of players that we bought this season that started the Champions League final for us? It was 15 million. Christian Mosquera, who we signed for 15 million from Valencia, and Nkapie, whose clause, whose loan to his option to buy clause has yet to be activated. And if we did activate it already, then okay. But that counts towards next season's expenditure. 15 million. The 70 million euro signing in Zubimendi did not start. The 70 million signing in Eze did not start. The 67 million signing Gyökeres did not start. The 56 million signing Madueke did not start. And of course, Norgard and Kepa were squad options. But you cannot tell me that this was an amazing season when we spend nearly 300 million in this summer transfer window to go ahead and compete for the major honors, and we face a Champions League final, and of that 300 million, only 15 million starts for us, and it's because it took not one, but 2 injuries in the same position for that player to start. Otherwise, out of the 294 million spent, had either Timber or Ben White been fully fit, zero euros out of 294 million would have started for us in the Champions League final. So what does that tell you? It tells you either one of 2 things. It's binary. Either Mikel, when it comes to identifying the talent and the needs of his squad, is terrible at doing so, and I've been claiming that for a long time. He is abysmal when it comes to finding the correct talent and the players and profiles of players that he needs to make his system work. Or 2, he has no idea what his system is. He has no idea what style of play, what formation, what combinations, what areas of the pitch he wants to overload and attack. He has no idea what his best system is to actually understand what profile of player he needs, or at the very minimum, how to get the best out of the players that he brings into this squad. Because when you're playing boring, terrible, attacking football where you can't buy a goal unless it's a set piece, and you have to resort to switching things and putting combinations and throwing Lewis Skelly into the midfield to finally find something that sticks and that works after an FA Cup exit, after a Premier League that's been taken away from your hands. It took you all the way until the end of April, early May for you to finally find a starting 11 that works, that has chemistry, that has a decent balance, that can actually do something from open play. It took you 6 years and an additional 300 million pounds being spent, £1 billion total, for you to eventually find something that sticks so that you can just limp over the line. Is not good enough. That's not good enough. How can you tell me this was an incredible season? Because either, there's only 2 realities here. Either we pissed away 294 million this summer of players that are not good enough to start in the Champions League final for its biggest game in this club's history, and they're clearly not good enough to start, at least according to Mikel. Or Mikel has no idea how to get the best out of them. But ultimately, those decisions they start and end with Mikel. Those are his signings, those are his players, and he can't even find a way to get the best out of them. I'm very happy about the Premier League. Yes, I'm very happy about that. But you have to ask yourself, if that's the starting 11 that we ended with, that other 200 and something million that we spent, should that have been spent on other players that could have played the system that we're playing now, that could have executed it a little bit better? Should we have spent that money on better attacking talent? Should we have spent that money on other different profiles of players? And had we done that, would we have gotten more trophies? Would we have won that Champions League final that took us 20 years to get to? Or has Mikel just, or is Mikel just not good enough to actually find a way to get the best out of these players? Could Mikel not come up with a system and an approach that starts as and Odegaard and Gyökeres and Zubimendi and Declan Rice, the big signings that he made this season with Madueke coming off the bench, that actually gives us a style of football that is not only entertaining, but is actually going to deliver us the big moments and the big trophies? But don't tell me that you spent 300 million, you're facing the biggest game out of your career, and of that 300 million that you spent, only 15 million is starting for you in the biggest game, and the only reason that 15 million is starting is because two players in the same position got injured. Come on! And I'm supposed to then look back at this season and call it an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 season because we won the Premier League when everybody around us was absolute dog shit? I'm supposed to say this was the one for the history books. Give me a break. Give me a break. We should have done more. We should have done more. And now the question is, should we give Mikel another 200 million to spend, or is he going to piss that away? He won the Premier League for us. There's no point in changing it. When you look at the people around us, we are by far the most stable club in England. But let's call it straight, guys. It's because of the other teams. It's because of the other clubs' wrongdoing. It's because of their failures. It's because of, Guardiola clearly no longer having the mental, emotional energy for it and him moving on. It's because of where other clubs are and how poor they are and how terrible of a process they're going through that we got over the line. Not because we were amazing. Not because we were great. That's the reality. Look at the route we had in the Champions League, for crying out loud. So the question is, is Mikel going to get it right this time? Is he going to finally come up with a style of play and a formation that's going to get the best out of these players? Or did he just piss away another 300 million? Is it just looking like the only two players that are actually worth what they paid for him and have proved to actually be good enough for us were Mosquera and Nkapie? Once again, two center backs that can do a job at fullback. This guy is the GOAT when it comes to making these kind of signings, for crying out loud. The absolute best. But is anybody really saying right now that Zubimendi should start for us next season? Is anybody really saying that Eze should start for us next season? Because he scored 7 goals in the Premier League and 5 of them came against Tottenham. Congratulations on the stat pad, buddy. Madueke, for crying out loud, none of us even want to see that guy in an Arsenal shirt. And we're all saying we need a striker. So even Gyökeres isn't the solution. So how much better would this team have actually been? How much more would we actually accomplish if we either A, were playing a style of football that got the best out of these players, or B, had actually brought in the right profile of players to execute how Mikel wants to play? I'll leave that answer up to you. But please keep that in mind when you reflect on this season and you want to call it an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10 season. Have a higher standard. Please.